See, I want to do it. But I
Am I good to go?
did it.
All right. So I think I'm the one top between you and lunch, so I'll try to make this quick. We're here today to talk about ADRs, and those are architecture decision records. But before we do that, we're going to build a project. So I want to build a web app that helps me have my kids track the chores. So as a parent, I want to be able to add kids, and I want to be able to add chores. I want to be able to assign chores to kids. And then as a child, I want to be able to check chores off. To make it more fun, because nobody likes chores, we're going to assign points to certain chores. So if you wash my car, you get 100 points. And that way they're more incentivized to do those chores. So now that we know what we're building, how are we going to build it? What are you going to use as the front end? Are you going to use vanilla JavaScript? Are you going to do React, Vue, Angular, maybe something that's not even on the slide? When you pick one of these frameworks or technologies, I want you to think about why you're picking it. You don't have to tell me why you're picking it, but I want you to keep that in the back of your mind. Next, we're going to talk about styling. This one apparently is a very controversial topic. Show of hands, who here is Team Tailwind? All right, a lot less than I thought. Okay. This is a judge-free zone, so next, we're going to talk about frameworks. Are you going to use a framework? Why or why not? If you're in the React ecosystem, there are a ton of frameworks to choose from. So again, pick one. Maybe don't pick one, but know your why. State management. Again, there are a ton of choices. Are you going to use these contexts? Are you going to use one of these libraries? What are you going to do? Backend. Do you need a backend? Maybe you don't. Maybe you're going to use a backend as a service provider, things like AppWrite, Base. Maybe you're going to go with one of these that are on the screen. And then we're going to talk about database. Where are you going to store that data? Are you going to go SQL? Go SQL. If you're going to go with SQL, which one of these flavors are you going to pick? Now I'm exhausted and we haven't actually built anything yet. But that's what software development is. It's just a bunch of choices that you have to make over and over again to solve different problems. Now, if you think about your why, I'm willing to bet that there are no two people here that have made the exact same choices all through the stack. And that's because we all have different reasons for what we pick, right? Some of you might have picked a technology because you wanted to learn something new. Or you have a job interview and that job requires a certain stack and you want to show that you have worked in that stack. Or you might pick something that you're already familiar with. So if I'm familiar with React and I just want to go fast, and that's probably the one that I'm going to pick. But we all have our different reasons, right? Enterprise software is exactly the same thing, but on a much larger scale. A lot of times you have a lot more decisions that you have to make. Sometimes you're not even the one making those decisions. Sometimes it's people who are more senior than you, who have more experience, have been at the company a lot more. They understand the problem that they're trying to solve. So those choices that they went through, there are a ton more. You think about observability, testing. Sometimes you work in industries where you have to worry about compliance, then you have to worry about certain regulations. Each of these choices depend on some of the constraints that exist within that organization. I would be very impressed if there's somebody that knows all of these icons that are on the screen. Don't ask me how long it took me to create that slide, but it was a long time. So let's say you join a company and this is their tech stack. jQuery, Oracle, and Java. And you're like, what the hell? This can happen. More likely you're working in a bank. But you weren't there when those choices were made, right? You're probably thinking, why? Why pick those things? Nobody on Twitter uses that technology. Like, use something that everybody's talking about. But you don't have that context. You don't have you weren't there when those decisions were made, right? Maybe you're like my friend Erin here, and you're like, I wish I was in the room where those decisions were happening, where those decisions were made. Sometimes the people that made those decisions aren't even at the company today. And so some of those reasons might be lost. They might be watered down. Sometimes it's like a bad game of telephone where like one person says what they think the context or the reason was, and then just kind of passes down, and the original intent is not the version that you get. Now, I don't have a magic 8 ball or a crystal ball, and I don't have a time machine. So I can't help you go back and figure out why they made those decisions. But we have a way to move or to capture some of those decisions moving forward. And that's where architecture decision record comes in. I was pretty proud of this AI generated image. It was the best one that it generated, so I put it in the slides. So architecture decision record, that's a mouthful. So from now on, we're going to be calling them ADRs for short. But what are they? They are a lightweight documentation technique that's used to capture some of the important architecture decisions and their context. Now, I know what you're thinking, right? I don't want to write more documentation. Like, that's the last thing I want to do. But it's lightweight. It says so right on the slide. And it's highlighted, so it must be true. ADRs are meant to be very short, 1 to 2 pages at most, and they are typically written in Markdown. So they shouldn't be, fancy Word docs with like all this styling and highlighting. There are a couple different templates that people use for ADRs. One of the most common ones is the Nygaard template, named after Michael Nygaard, who evangelized the term in a blog post back in 2011. I'll have a link to that blog post at the end of the slide. But when we talk about ADRs, I'll kind of run through like what is that made of. It's pretty simple. It has 6 main components. First 3 are very easy, and then the next 3 are the ones that we're going to be focusing on. So the first thing that you need is you need a title. That just tells you what decision number that is, as well as what the decision was. So, for example, if you decide to use React as your front-end library, then you would have the number of your decision. For example, if you choose second decision, it would be 2, period, and then use React as the library. The next one is the date. This one's pretty self-explanatory. It's just the date in which you made that decision. And then status. There have been, sources online that say that some of the other statuses that you can have are proposed and rejected. I haven't seen those very common. The 2 most common ones are accepted and superseded. Accepted just means that you've made this decision, everybody's accepted it. Superseded means that this decision was changed later on down the line by another decision. We will take a look at an example in a little bit. So the next 3 are the meat and potatoes of the ADRs. First, you need context. What is it that we're trying to solve? Like, what is the problem that we need a decision for? It might be you need to store data. So you need a database. In that case, the decision is going to be what database is going to use. What did we start and decide and why? In this case, you might have several options to choose from. You would say why you chose the technology or framework that you chose. Rob talked about it in his talk right before mine, but one of the things that we want to make sure people understand is consequences. So why did you pick the tech that you picked? What are the pros and the cons of picking that? Is it going to make something harder down the line if you pick a certain one, or is it going to make certain things easier? What are the other things that you evaluated? Like if you're trying to decide between Postgres or MySQL or SQLite, and you go with Postgres, why did you pick that one over the others? Like, what did it have an advantage? And then why were those other ones not chosen? So it kind of helped people reading that ADR later on down the line. It helped them understand that you did your research, you evaluated some of the options, and this is why you chose the tech that you chose. So just to kind of put it all together, this is an example of what an ADR looks like. You've got your title at the top with the date. I think date formats differ between different templates, so you can use the one that you like. Status is accepted. And in this case, the ADR talks about how to create new files and apply small edits to the status section of existing files. The way that they decided to do that is to implement shell scripts. And then you'll see down in the consequences section, there will be differences, or it won't support Windows. So if you're using this ADR tool on Windows, it won't work. So pick something else. So that's a consequence that they're aware of, and they want to make sure that everybody using this tool knows of that. So two of the most common CLI tools for the NiGuard template are ADR tools, which works on Linux and Mac OS, and the equivalent of it is ADR CLI, which works on Windows. But they do the same thing. The syntax to use them is the same, and we're going to take a look at that syntax here next. So you install your CLI tool. If you're on Mac, you probably do a brew install ADR tools, and then you're ready to go. First thing you need to do is you need to initialize a directory in your project that tells the CLI tool where to put those files. So when you create new ADRs, those files have to go somewhere. So with ADR init, you give it a path to where you want those decisions to be. It doesn't have to be the one that I am showing here. It could be docs ADR. It could be docs decisions. It's just a matter of personal preference. So now that you have your directory initialized, if you want to create a new one, the syntax is ADR new, and then the title of your decision. So in this case, we wanted to use CSS for styling, and so that is the title that I'm going to give it. What it generates is a markdown file in that format. So you'll see the first three characters are the number or the decision number, and then use CSS for styling, which is the title, just kind of with dashes in it. It auto increments. So every time you create, say, ADR new, it will see what number you're at in that folder, and then it will generate a new file with the number incremented by 1. Now, let's say you use CSS for a while and you're like, actually, I want to use Tailwind. You can create ADRs to supersede or basically override previous decisions that you made. And that's the thing is like, just because you make a decision doesn't mean that you can't change it. Decisions are point in time decisions based on the information that you have. So things might change down the line and you might realize, actually, I don't like CSS, just leave CSS and I want to use Tailwind. You can make those decisions. You just have to add the -f in front of new, and then the decision that you are overriding. So in this case, my decision was number 3, and I'm superseding that with use Tailwind for style. So some of the benefits of using ADRs is faster onboarding. How many times have you joined a new team and you don't know a lot of the things that they've done? Like you don't know the tech stack that they pick. You're trying to ask questions, but some of the people aren't there, and it just makes it harder to onboard new employees and new designers, new PMs. You don't have those decision records. Better decision tracking, context preservation. So all that context that existed at the time that you tried to make those decisions, those are there. A lot of times in that example where we had like jQuery, Oracle, and Java, that may have been the tech choice 15 years ago, right? And it just hasn't changed. And 15 years ago, we didn't have React. We didn't have some of these frameworks that we're using today. And so having that context kind of helps people understand why those decisions. You can also avoid unnecessary rework. So let's say you join a new company and you're like, I think there's a better way to do this, and I think I'm gonna do it. There are times where the team has already evaluated them and they decided that's not the right choice for us at the time. And so instead of you trying to go implement it and wasting time doing that, that decision or those consequences are already they're already documented. And they said, we've thought about it, and this is why we didn't go that route. And it also includes transparency. If everybody knows the decisions that are being made and how they're being made, it kind of helps like the organization, the culture of the organization, be more open, and there's not this like group of people that only they can make the decisions, and you don't get to know why they're making those decisions. So it just kind of helps the culture overall. Now, you're convinced you're going to use ADRs in your workflow. How do you go about doing that? I'm a big proponent of storing them in your repository. So documentation is hard enough as it is, not just writing it, but finding it. So don't store it somewhere where it's hard for somebody to find. Store it in your repo. That way it's all there. You can even use your favorite code editing tool. Let's say you're using Cursor. You can even ask Cursor questions about it, like summarize it, or why did this decision get made? And it's right there. It doesn't have to go reach for that somewhere else. Know what to document. Now, you don't want to document everything. You don't want to document whether you use a camel case or snake case or kebab case. You don't want to document what your folder structure is going to look like. Those are things that somebody just looking at the code base will easily be able to tell. Like you chose this format. That's pretty easy. Things that are cosmetic or things that are like aesthetic, don't document those. But document things that are hard to prove. So if you choose NoSQL for your database, document that, because it's going to be hard to go from NoSQL to SQL or the other way around. AWS versus Azure, just things that require a lot of time and effort to change. Those are the things that you got to document. Leverage AI. I am not saying use AI to write it for you, all of it, but part of it. You need to make sure you understand the decisions that you're making. I think it's more important than ever that people know the trade-offs of the tech they're choosing. That have AI tools that just kind of spit out code for you. And a lot of times people are like, well, I don't know. That's what Claude told me to do, or that's what Claude gave me. If you're in an interview and somebody asks you, why did you choose those tech choices? It's not a good look if you say, that's just what Bolt said. So you want to make sure that you understand what your decision is, and some of those trade-offs and consequences of choosing those. Now, if there's one thing that you can take from this talk, it's that there is no best decision, right? Everything is a trade-off. What you might think is the best might not be what somebody else thinks is best. Strive for the least worst combination of trade-offs based on the information that you have to deal with. You don't know what you don't know. Something that might happen a year or two from now, you don't know if that's going to happen or not. And so don't try to optimize for hypotheticals that might not exist. Just try to do the best that you can with the information that you have and the tools that you have. Now, decisions are hard. If you want to get better at making decisions, these are two great books, Fundamentals of Software Architecture and Software Architecture, the Hard Parts. I won't lie, they are thick books. So it might take you a while to get through them, but they kind of help you understand some of those trade-offs, like how to make better decisions as a software engineer. Now, some of the resources that I mentioned, the first one is a GitHub repository document of everything related to ADRs. The second one is the ADR tools that I use here on this slide. And then the last one is the blog post from Michael Nygaard, where he first talks about architecture decision records. All of these will be available in the slides once I send them to Danny. And then don't forget, please send in your feedback. It helps me become a better speaker. It helps organizers put on an amazing conferences. So before you go to lunch, if you could find my talk in the Commit Your Code website, submit your feedback, let me know. And I didn't introduce myself. My name is Israa. I'm a software engineer with over 14 years of experience in web and mobile. I'm doing React Native and Expo today. But if you want to talk to me about any of those things, World Cup, Hamilton, how Diet Coke is far superior to Pepsi, come find me. This is a QR code to all of my links, my website, LinkedIn, Twitter, GitHub, all the things. So, yeah, thank you so much.